All right. Referring back to our paper, we're going to start with number 1. So the very first thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and put some examples in here because it's a good idea to have some examples in your notes to refer back to, especially when we're not doing this every day. And I'm going to write 5 and 13 hundredths. So we're going to, number 1, write the value. Number 2, we're going to label the place value. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to put my place value marks. And I'm going to label these places. This is the ones, this is the tenths, and this is the hundredths. For this example, we're going to round to the tenths place. All right, so if I write too fast, you can always pause the video and catch up, but for time purposes, I'm going to keep going. So if I've gone too fast, pause the video, catch up. Step 3, circle the value you're rounding. Or rounding. In this case, we're rounding to the nearest tenth, so I'm going to circle the digit in the tenths place. Neighbor on the right. Remember, we're going to knock on the neighbor's door because the neighbor on the right has the right advice. So, I'm going to draw my arrow to the neighbor on the right, and I see that that value is a 3. So I'm thinking about, well, what does a 3 tell you to do? It tells me to stay there. So what exactly does that mean? That means that we're going to keep that 1 exactly where it is. So when we write this value, it's going to be keep the 5 and keep the 1. This is your answer. So step 5 is rewrite rounded answer. Let's do a few more together so that you get this process down. Our next number, number 2, is 9 and 97 hundredths. So I'm going to write that number. I'm going to skip a line. Number 2, 9 and 97 hundredths. I'm going to label the place value. So this is the ones, this is the tenths, and this is the hundredths. I'm going to circle the value I'm rounding. So I'm rounding to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to circle the digit in the tenths place. I'm going to go to the neighbor on the right and ask for advice. The neighbor on the right is a 7. When I go up to my hill, the 7 says that we're going to grow up. Only the digit in the circle is the one that grows up. So I have to stop and think, well, what would come after 9? Well, the next number after 9 would be 10. And so if I have 10 here, that means that I'm going to have to bounce this number up to 10 also. So this value rounds to the whole number 10. Box in your answer. Number 3. Skipping a line, writing number 3. Number 3 is 7 and 59 hundredths. So write that value out, 7 and 59 hundredths. label the place value. This is the ones, this is the tenths, and this is the hundredths. We're going to circle the value that we're rounding. We're still rounding to the nearest hundredth. Go to your neighbor on the right. Our neighbor on the right is a 9, and he says to grow up. Again, only the digit in the circle is the one that's doing the growing. So what comes after the number 5? 6. So we're going to keep the 7. We're going to change the 5 to 6, and that is it. This number has been rounded to the nearest tenth. I'm going to do 2 more examples with you. Question number 4. 2 and 23 hundredths. We wrote the value. We're going to label the place value. This is the ones. This is the tenths. This is the hundredths. We're going to circle the value that we're rounding. We're rounding to the nearest tenth. We knock on our neighbor's door. The value is 3. When I go up to the top, the 3 says to stay there. So that just simply means that we're not changing this number at all. We're going to keep the value in front of the circle, 2, and the 2 is going to stay at 2. 2 and 2/10 is our rounded 10th answer. All right, we have one more that we're going to put in our notes, question number 5. And this value is 8 and 99 hundredths. Again, I'm going to underline the place value. I'm going to think about the ones, the tenths, and the hundredths. We're going to circle the value in the tenths place. We're going to knock on our neighbor's door. And our neighbor says to grow up. So now I'm going to step back and I'm going to think about this number. Well, what would come after 8 and 9/10? That would be the number 9. So we would bounce this number up to 0, which would give this another whole, meaning that this value is also rounded to the nearest tenth, the number 9. Now I've done these 5 for you, so what I want you to do is go back to your paper and I want you to record your answers. We have 5 and 1/10. We have the number 10. I'm not sure what that was. I think that was marker on my hand. 7 and 6/10. 2 and 2/10. 9 wholes. What I'd like you to do now is go over here to 6 through 10, 6 through 7, and I want you to do that same thing in your notes. Whoops, sorry. Go ahead and do that same thing in your notes, and then record your answers on your paper. I'll see you back for the next video, which is rounding to the nearest hundredth.